spiel. Let's take all these things off. Don't need them right now. I'm here to have a conversation with you guys today about South Africa versus Israel. And make sure I have the right amount of light there. How you guys doing? I don't know if that's better or worse. See? What do y'all think? I like this better. Anyway, South Africa versus Israel. The real conversation is about indigenous rights going from the continent into Eden. And of course, this is Breakfast with Dell, and we're going to chop it up while you watch me eat. Listen, I want to say his name while it's fresh on my tongue. But Cyril Ramaphosa is the president of South Africa. And he's not the only dominant character that has begun to stand up in Africa and begin to speak very boldly about the indigenous rights of his nation and the indigenous rights in general that cause us to realize the true infractions that have taken place over the course of many years with colonizer behavior. Bless you, Carlos D. Morales. Good to see you. We're here in a place really where many nations are facing the terrible truth of their history, and they're wrestling with holding on to things that were immorally acquired. And I'm gonna have to probably charge this phone in this minute. Okay, I got a lot of time. Namely, the three nations that come to mind, of course, are South Africa, Israel, and the United States of America. And I'm going to try to do this justice by talking very specifically about some of the massive injustices. Good to see you, Brian Holmes. The massive injustices that we are currently dealing with and that the world is dealing with and trying. And I mean, colonizing powers are trying hard, like never before, to hold on to their lies. Because we're at the place where the bed sheets have been pulled off, the truth is known, the evil is revealed to all, and now people have to deal with it, and they don't want to deal with it. And God bless you to everybody. So let's start. Number one, I have to start with Israel. I plan to take a trip to Israel, hopefully in the month of May of 2025. The New World Passover of the Hebrews in Israel is happening at that time, and I would be very happy to be there, trying to get things in order, trying to make sure that I'm going to see the right group of individuals when I get down there. I want to go to Dimona. I definitely want to connect with some of the leaders in Dimona and just to have them show the world, what they've really been dealing with, and to give us a true indigenous experience of Israel. And to deal with Israel first, we have to start talking about the Ashkenazi and the Sephardic misinformation campaign, from an Israel perspective and from even an academia perspective that has basically swept across the world. History has been rewritten. Biblical history has been manipulated in such an egregious way that it just has to be called out. And first of all, and I'm not a big guy with disclaimers because I don't really care. I really don't care what people think. I don't care. I really don't care what people think. People who've been watching me know I ain't afraid of you ninjas. I don't care what you think. But the disclaimer is that this is not to invalidate anyone who wants to call themselves a Jew or call themselves a Talmudic believer, to call themselves a follower of the Mosaic faith. This is an attack, if you need it to be. It's an attack on Zionism. I just want to be clear. This is an attack on Zionism. This is not an attack on the Europeans who have adopted Judaism as their faith. It's not an attack on the regular people who refer to themselves as Israeli, wherever they exist in the world. This is an attack on Zionism. And Zionism is evil. And I don't care how you try to manipulate the context of it. Zionism is evil. And Zionism is based on the fraudulent claim of indigenous rights of Slavic people. Some people refer to themselves as Sephardic. And those would be Latin people who claim to be indigenous Hebrews. And it is an egregious assault on reality and truth that needs not to take place, because nobody is discounting what European or white Jewish people have gone through in respect to how they have been treated. Nobody is trying to eliminate what they refer to as the Holocaust. Nobody's trying to eliminate the many tribulations and trials that Jewish people have had in the 20th century and even before that. Nobody's trying to eliminate those things. But we also are not trying to victimize individuals who had privilege. Jewish. When I say Jewish, I want to be very specific. I want to say white European Jewish people have been beneficiaries of white supremacy. They have been on the side of white supremacy and holding of slaves in places like the Caribbean, where they were some of the worst slavers. They have taken full advantage of their colonizing rights that has been given to them by NATO. Full advantage. They have taken full advantage of being able to pass as white and therefore being adopted by white supremacy in America with the context of the white man chosen by God ideology, which is why America supports Israel. America supports Israel ideologically because it behooves the evangelical white supremacist to say that God has chosen the white man as his chosen race. And look at Israel, where these white people are, who are Israelites, but they're really Israeli, who are Jewish, but they're really not Hebrew and indigenous. These are God's chosen people, therefore we are God's chosen people. Ideologically, that is the core basis of the support of Israel. From thence, henceforth, of course, the logistic support of Israel in the Middle East for not only the procurement of resources from areas around them, but a strategic military post as well. So these things go very, very deep. The indigenous masquerading of the Ashkenazi and the Sephardic Jew is something that needed to happen in order for them to claim the rights that NATO gave them in 1948 to that land. And when you do that, when you go that far and try to basically change your history, there's going to come a time people are going to push back. And the problem, again, I'm trying to mix a few things in here, and I'm moving on from Israel in a minute, but when you think of AI information, ladies and gentlemen, AI information, right now somebody can utilize AI and they can rewrite history on Wikipedia in 20 seconds, pages and pages and pages of false history. It is very important today that people become, especially people from the diaspora, especially indigenous people all over the world, that you maintain your own written histories, your own written logs and oral logs of who you are, where your people came from, and what is the true history of your land. An Ashkenazi Ashkenazis are currently saying that that Ashkenazi people went to Eastern Europe, the Baltic areas, because of the Second Temple destruction, and that Rome forced the Jews to the Baltic areas. That's one terminology. Second is that the Sephardic is saying that, oh, the Jews who were in Spain married Spanish women and Italian women, and those women converted to Judaism, and that's how we have the Sephardic Jew, and that is again fictional. It's fictional because of something referred to as the Spanish Inquisition. For you who are looking into that, in the 15th century, the Spanish Inquisition was the forcing of basically the Roman Catholic Church to convert everyone to Christianity on penalty of death. On penalty of death. It would have been impossible to remain a Jew in Spain. It would have been impossible. You would have had to have fled that area to do that. It would have been impossible for a Hebrew to effectively marry Latin women and still maintain the Hebrew status of his genealogy, when in fact that to be Hebrew itself meant that your mother was Hebrew. It would defy the historical biblical context of the book of Ezra, where Ezra forced them, when the Babylonian captivity was over, to divorce their foreign wives and their foreign children. It would have competed with the preservation of a people who allegedly, according to this Ashkenazi context, that they were such under pressure that they had to run. They would have clung to their own ethnicities. They would not have wanted to marry outside of the community. It would have been something that was adverse to their own survival and their own culture. It also is not pragmatic historically to think that, well, all of these Hebrews who are marrying these Latin people, now they have somehow, black people have become only Latin looking. Only Latin looking. The Ashkenazi scenario, where they ignore the 8th century conversion, forced conversion by the Khazars. They ignore that history altogether, a history that you can simply say, Siri, tell me when Slavic people converted to Judaism. Just do that. You can. I don't want to say Alexa, because Alexa Alexa will talk right now. But you can say the same thing to Alexa. You can say the same thing to Google. You can say the same thing in any search engine, and it will tell you the 8th century conversion of Slavic people to Judaism, forced conversion by their leader, by their king. And that is okay. And that is enough history to say why European people, Slavic people, a lot of Slavic people converted to Judaism. There's nothing wrong with that history. But when you try to superimpose a group of people who come from a Germanic language, and say that these Germanic people were indigenous Hebrew people who spoke a Shemitic language in their prior history, but basically ignore the Baltic history of those people, the Lithuanians, the Prussians, and all these other individuals who were in that area, and say that these people were somehow always Shemitic. I mean, come on. It takes too much imagination to do that. And it is imagination. And so these conversations that I consistently have with people who say, oh, but I've been 10 generations Hebrew living in Israel. That's fine. There's nobody who's going to say that's an issue. There's no issue. If your ancestors converted in the 8th century, and you are a descendant from 8th century converted Jews, you have a fantastic history. You have a beautiful history. Keep your history, but don't superimpose it past the point of origin. That is the problem that we have with that particular scenario. And we know what took place in 1948. We know what has taken place in the region. And we know how things have affected the indigenous individuals who have been there. But moving on from that, you move now into South Africa, because America, that doesn't need to be highly explained in a deep way, but we'll get there anyway. You move into South Africa and you understand the sorts of scenarios that took place in South Africa, how South Africa was invaded by the Dutch. I had a young lady come on and she took something I had said in 2018, which was extremely accurate, and she basically poised it next to herself, looking at me, saying exactly what I'm going to say now and say it again. But with South Africa, with the Boers, with the Dutch settlers who took upon themselves to basically take the land of indigenous people, to create approximately 431 laws that stopped their movement, their capacity to vote, their capacity to be participant in their own government, and take over their nation, and creating this context of apartheid that went all the way into the 1990s. And then now Cyril Ramaphosa is in a position to correct, in a compassionate way, mind you, some of the egregious thievery of land that has taken place, and try to restore property and to minimize the loss of indigenous rights in his nation. Now as the president, he's being criticized by Western powers. He's being criticized by individuals like, we know, Elon Musk, and told by Donald Trump that he's going to pull away sanctions and pull away this and pull away aid, U.S. aid, and all these things. But people have forgotten that South Africa is a first world nation and they don't need anything from the United States of America. People have forgotten that Africa never needs anything from any colonizer. They tried to put sanctions on Idi Amin. The Queen tried to put sanctions on Idi Amin, and Idi Amin went on a tour showing her, I have hippopotamuses, I have giraffes, we have food. We need nothing from you, Miss Elizabeth. And I remember that video, you can still see it on YouTube, of Idi Amin mocking England, saying, you're going to put sanctions on Africa? Africa will put sanctions on you. You are starving, we are not. And these concepts that now, and people are saying, oh my gosh, he's talking about Idi Amin, he's talking about Idi Amin. We need to break the colonizers' hold on the historical ramifications of our power. You need to break it, because when you lift up the people they lift up, you lift up your oppression. Idi Amin to me is a man who said, I do not want non-Africans in my nation. And he put them out. And some people say, oh my gosh, I was part of that. The concept is nothing foreign to what America is doing right now, where they are gathering up Latin Americans and gathering up people and say, we do not want non-Americans in our nation. People are saying, well, that's just the rule of law. But when Idi Amin did it, he's a butcher. He's this, he's that, he's this. The president of Burkina Faso is also someone who allegedly has been very, very vocal about identifying the indigenous Hebrew of Israel. And he himself, of his own nation, has made it illegal for foreigners to buy land in Burkina Faso. He has made sure that he is protecting the integrity of Burkina Faso. He is not new. Trinidad and Tobago had to limit the capacity of foreigners to buy land in the little island of Trinidad and Tobago, because they would have become like St. Vincent, where most of the land is owned by a white landowner. They had to stop individuals from encroaching on the sovereignty of their land. They had to put in their constitution, one of the only nations, I believe, in the world, Trinidad and Tobago, who says that it is the right of every Trinidadian citizen to own land. It is the right. I don't think any nation, any republic has that in their constitution. Nations need to pull back the reins of colonizer encroachment. We move on to the United States of America, not rushing past South Africa. South Africa is a nation that also has said to Israel that they charge them in the World Criminal Court of being a genocidal nation, a nation of war crimes. They charge them. U.S. says, we want you to withdraw those charges right now, because South Africa represents the leading charge of a first world nation, especially in Africa, to say that the colonizer must go. And nations all over Africa have begun to push the colonizer forces out of Africa, because why are you in those countries? And these words hit hard. If you are a white person listening to me, and I say to you that France, that Italy, that England needs to get out of Africa, why would your heart feel offended? Why would your heart feel, oh no, he's a black militant? No, these are sovereign places. These are sovereign places that have been raped, that have been pillaged, that have been their resources have been stolen. Nobody talks about what's going on in Congo, what's going on in Sudan. Nobody's talking about these nations that are being pillaged. Congo is kept weak so that the world can reach their hand in and pillage all of the resources of Congo. Congo is kept, they're calling their diamonds. Remember, they were calling them blood diamonds. They were not allowing the world to trade in their minerals. They're saying, oh, there's so much guerrilla warfare, we're going to make all of the minerals of Congo illegal, while still Western powers were flying in and scooping up resources. No, it's real evil that's going on. Let me say what Sky's the Limit says. So does that mean me as a Mexican and Native American citizen should go and start a civil war in America? You should start a civil war of consciousness. You should start a civil war of intellect. You should declare that if you want your land, that if you want your independence, that individuals who have picked up arms against you and have raped and murdered your ancestors deserve to be held accountable. And if you don't want to do that, and if you want to be a passive individual who sits on the side and says that's the past, then you will continue to be an individual that is you speaking a colonizer language, wearing as the title of yourself a colonizer name, and you will die with the tongue and the identity of a colonizer over your life. My friend, imagine that somebody abducted your child, took your child to a foreign land, changed your child's name, raised your child in a foreign way. And then when your child was found by you, when you said, baby, I found you, your child says, I don't want to go back. I like it here. I like my name. I like my identity. I don't want to speak another language. And said, this is my home. That is called Stockholm Syndrome. That's a disorder. That's a disorder of people who have been held hostage so long that they fall in love with the people who are keeping them hostage. And so you think I'm afraid of the word civil war? I'm not afraid of it. America is not afraid to declare war on any nation who infringes on the interests of America. They will start a war in Afghanistan. They will start a war in Iraq. They will start a war in Grenada. They will start a war anywhere on the planet that infringes on American interests. But you are afraid to use the word civil war when the bones of your ancestors lay under your feet, when the screams of their blood cries out to the ground and tells you very well that Texas was your place, that tells you very well that the places in California were your place. But you want me to pacify you? You want me to say, no, don't do that? You want me to tell you to keep marching and waving flags because colonizers respond to peaceful marches, right? That's what changes the world, a peaceful march. Peaceful marchers get crushed under tanks, my friend. Peaceful marchers, bombs fall on them in Oklahoma, in Tulsa, and obliterate what they've built. No, peace is something that can be done when your gun and their gun has the same size and the same amount of bullets. That's what the Cold War was about. The entire Cold War was about making sure there was a balance of power. And without a balance of power, there will always be a tyrant and there will always be a victim. So my friend, you cannot sit around and say, "Oh, you know what? I'm Mexican American, and I'm just going to try to follow the laws of the land. The laws of the land were not created for you; they were created to make sure that you stay a serf, a peasant. That's right. That's what they were created for. So I'm sorry if you believe that somehow peaceful discourse will change the world when the oppressor has a gun at your throat and a knife at your throat. It's not the case. It's not the biblical case. The Bible doesn't say that's going to happen. No, there's going to be wars. There's going to be wars. People have to fight to take things back from people who've taken things from them. That's how life works. But when you see places like South Africa, I'm still on South Africa, that have not done the same thing that the apartheid regime did to them, have not imprisoned white South Africans, have not said, we're going to reclaim your land and take it back because we're going to run a railroad through your town, and we're going to set up a highway here, so we're going to declare eminent domain, and we're going to just abscond with all of this land and destroy your businesses. When they don't do that, that's when you see the sign of something great is happening. That's when you see the sign that good people are actually in rulership. But what you see what's happening in Israel, when you see what's coming out of the mouth of Donald Trump, where he says, we're just going to level the place. We're going to wipe out Gaza and make a beach out of it. Make a beach, make a Riviera over the bones of dead children, over the bones of dead women. That's where you have evil sitting in places of power. And you can't sit there in the United States of America and not realize a dragon is in the White House, not a lamb. No. And coming back to America, the evilest nation that has ever been on the earth, the most evil, the absolute most evil, the only nation to drop an atomic bomb twice on another nation, the only nation to ever do it, America. The only nation that formed for the very purposes of keeping slaves. That's what America was formed on. Don't believe anything else. When Britain abolished slavery, those Americans said, you know what? Those same British men said, well, you can go down over there, go to those colonies, you can do anything you want over there. They weren't running away from tyranny. They weren't running away from taxation. They were running to a place where they could have free slave labor and build a massive amount of wealth, some of which was supposed to go back to their homelands. What do you think Columbus was doing? What do you think Vasco da Gama was doing? All these explorers who came to South America, who were coming to all of these so forth colonies, and taking the resources, taking the sugar, and all the what were they trying to do? Decimate indigenous people with either warfare, with manipulation, or sometimes with simply just diseases, smallpox, decimating populations, knowing that they had it, knowing that their very presence was poisonous to the indigenous people. No, my friends. The indigenous problem and indigenous crisis that is going out all over the world is a cry happening right now. The entire world is standing up. Right now in Canada, you can't even sing the national anthem without hearing a pledge. These are indigenous lands by the Sohani people. Everywhere you go, the indigenous cries of the past are rising up, but it's slower. The darker those complexion indigenous peoples are. When is it going to cry out in Australia when we have replaced the Australian Aboriginal person with a white person who says that he is indigenous? When is that going to happen? Have you seen what the indigenous Australian used to look like and what an indigenous Australian says he looks like now? Completely different. We've absconded with nationalities. We've completely obliterated them and replaced them. Even the concept of a DEI hire is the absconding of indigenousness. When somebody says that we want a diversity and equity inclusive workforce, but you hire a white woman to take that job, what are you saying? You're saying that a white woman is a minority? How is that possible? How are we changing the context of what a minority is by saying that a white Anglo-Saxon woman is a minority? When we have to say, well, let's make another category, because inclusion of an equitable scenario to particular race, you have to now say, well, let's do something with gender too, but you've thrown them all together. So effectively, you're taking advantage. You're taking advantage. When they said that, oh, let's put homosexuals in that group too. So now a DEI hire is a white gay man, is an Anglo-Saxon gay man. He's now an equity hire because somehow the gay lobbyist has associated himself with an ethnicity. Sexual orientation has become an ethnicity. And these are the things that they drive the mind of a sensible person crazy, because we don't understand what is really happening in the minds of these lawmakers and these people who are creating policy. What is really your agenda? What is the true agenda? And this is the other part too, because I am now going to be called one of two things. I am a race baiter, or I'm a person who is using identity politics. And this is the greatest, I got to use proper words, but this is the greatest mind mess up ever. You're saying that now that you have gotten the full advantage of hundreds of years of using the privilege of your identity, of massing wealth, of owning land, of creating countries, of displacing and murdering people who were indigenous to those places. Now, when I tell you about your history and tell you that what you are still doing is indicative of what you have done in the past, now I become an individual who is called a race baiter, or I'm using identity politics. Imagine the propaganda. It started by saying, oh, we have to come against the woke culture. And you've put everything that you don't like in the woke culture. You've thrown it all in there, including a person who's simply a historian, who's saying that what you're doing is exactly what you've done before. Your hegemony hasn't changed. You've just hegemonically controlled. Now you control the White House. Now you control policies. Now you control the Senate. Now you control the Supreme Court. All you've done is you say, you know what? Since we can't be everywhere, let's just be in the strong places and the places that we actually can keep control. Yeah, but you are still doing the same thing. And you're saying that I am now utilizing identity politics. You have been so talented at that. Hence, these new age Negroites to speak the same language that you are speaking, because they are so interested in being part of the American experiment, of which they are in the petri dish and other people are poking at them. But they are so interested in being part of the American experiment. They have closed one eye. They have Candace Owens their mind to believe truly that somehow racism doesn't exist, that somehow institutionalization and systemic racism doesn't exist. They have somehow forgotten the disproportionate amount of wealth, the disproportionate amount of access, the disproportionate amount of power that still exists in those nations. And because they have been propped up, they have been put in positions of semi-power. They have been made a sports star. They have been made an entertainer. They have been voted in by a group of people. And there's some people who have been voted in by groups of people. There's some black people who are pro-Republican, pro-establishment, who have been voted in by a white group, a white constituency, and have been put in positions of power because they say, he will say what we need him to say. He's one of us, although he looks like one of them. And so don't get me wrong. There are black men in places of power, who've been put in places of power by white constituents, because they know when they get up there, they're going to say what they need them to say. And let me tell you something. I'm not throwing everybody under the bus. But when you have scenarios that are not just terrestrial to one particular nation, it's not just in America. It's not just in Africa. It's also going on in Israel. When you have it going around the world, that's when you know there is an international awakening coming from people of all different colors, of creeds, of ethnicities, of languages, of ideologies that are saying this is wrong. When you see the white South African saying, Donald Trump, we do not wish to become a refugee in your country. We are South African. When you see the white South African saying, oh, Cyril Ramaphosa is treating us very fairly. He is not taking away our land. We are South African. When you see the United Nation of South Africa in their behavior, you have to look and say, well, this thing definitely has promise. This thing definitely has some type of potential. So I don't know how we can sit back and not be outspoken about the things that are clearly rigged to steal identities. Once your identity is stolen, what are you? I made up my mind that there's three things that are going to happen to me before I leave this plane of existence. Okay? The number one that is specific for this particular scenario is I am going to learn an Afro-Semitic language or an African language. I'm going to learn it. I'm going to be able to speak it. I'm going to be able to read it. I'm going to be able to write it. Because I am not going to be Kunta Kinte who dies as Toby. I think that for me, that's a very important thing. I am not an Englishman. I speak English. I think it's a very important thing. I think it's important even to the point that you realize that even a revisit to Africa, the people that you meet in Africa will still look at you, a black man, and say, he's a foreigner. I still will fight against it and still will make sure that coming out of my mouth before I die will be an Afro-Semitic or Afro-Hamitic language, that I will not die with the colonizer's tongue only in my mouth. That is one of the most important things for me as a human being, because I understand the containment of my control over this world, and I can control me, and that my ideas are uncontrollable. And if I can make sure that I throw out ideas that can change the world, then the limited power of my finances, limited power of my physical access won't stop me from being a world changer, and it won't stop you. I want to read some of the things that I've been seeing coming down the pipe. I know I've been ignoring some of the comments because I was on my rant, but let me see if I can go down the road here and see what you guys are saying. Big deception over the true Hebrew matter. I appreciate you bringing this truth. It's controversial, but it's part of the awakening. Thank you very much. Free Palestine, I see. Why are we going to war with cartels? I don't know the history of that. I know what's going on sometimes with the cartels, but I don't know it enough to talk about it. I saw those are Europeans, Grand Rising. That's from Michelle Clark. Good to see you. Bro ordered the Zaza and got the OG. I don't know what that means. Bro, they have gentrified all of us. We have been colonized. I just wish that I was white so I could get the privilege. In the 11th century, Poland's king forced them to be Catholic, and it stuck. Now, wet chart. All of Slavic people aren't Hebrew. Let's be clear, right? We have Orthodox Russians, right? Russia is a Christian nation, been a Christian nation since the 10th century. It is one of the longest standing Christian nations that we have, right? And we have Lithuanian, Latvia, You have Ukrainian, both Jews. You have Christians. So you have Islam, Christianity, and Judaism in all of the Slavic nations. All of the Slavic nations, right? They have converted to the Abrahamic faiths. All of them have. You had wars between particular factions over who was Muslim and who was a Roman Catholic Christian. So that's why it's so silly. It's like saying that the Russian Christians, were the people who were actually were talking about in the Bible in the first century. Oh yeah, the Russian Christians, they were there, Polycarp and Clement, and they were there. That's how ridiculous it is to say that Yiddish people, that Germanic Jews, Germanic language Jews, those are the individuals from the Bible. That's how ridiculous it is. It's as ridiculous to say that the Muslims, right? The Muslims who are Slavic Muslims, those are the Muslims who were there with Muhammad in the 7th century. They were Bedouin Arabs, right? Those is it Kosovo? I'm not sure which section, which group were Muslim and which group were Christian. So forgive me for not knowing that off the top of my head. But knowing that there was a interaction between Muslims and Christians and a war in that particular area over that. Imagine saying that those Slavic Muslims, those people who are Muslim now, white Muslims in that area now, that those people are the people who Muhammad was trying to convert into Islam, and he took over the world with those people. Imagine saying these kind of things. But the Slavic Jew gets away with saying, "Oh, we're the people that were in the Bible. We were there." I heard Netanyahu like try to preach about it, like, no, we were there with Moses. And man, stop, please, come on, man. Like, if it's not true for them, how can it be true for you when you're the same people? Let's continue. He said, actually, the end of the 10th century. Okay. We've got Tronus Beast. What's up, brother? So does that mean, or the Mexican thing I talked about, since the Kyrie Irving saga, Brent has been a spearhead of these truths. Thank you very much, brother. I'm not offended. We've been watching England claim the globe for 1,000 years. Yeah, let's talk about that, right? Let's talk about that. England has, and the question is, which England? Was it the actual England, or was it the England that the Vikings basically took over and created a new level of England? England has been colonizing forever. Like, we have scenarios now where we're watching nations now that, and we look at those nations, say, why did that nation speak English? Why is English the first language of that particular nation? We have scenarios like that we have to look at. We have to re-examine, how did the history of this come to be? And then you go to the portion and you start correcting it. Currently, which is the, I wonder if it's the brother in, anyways, it wasn't, I don't know if it's him, but I know historically, Lumumba, and then the brother, I don't know, why is his name on the top of my head? He's got the leopard hat. Somebody help me. His name, but he made sure that Mobutu, he made sure that they stopped speaking the colonizer language for a period of time. They had to start naming their children with African names. They did still keep, this is Congo. They still did keep French, but they had to also learn the indigenous tongue as well. He enforced that, right? Not that Mobutu was the greatest guy. He was working for the CIA, but let me see here. England still owns Australia, United States, Canada, Africa, still has hooks in China. Exactly. In Hong Kong, they had 100-year conversation with Hong Kong that they just let go of. When you know the truth, it haunts you every day. Great topics. The geopolitical landscape is shifting. I'm just going to go fast. Columbus was looking for gold in the Philippines. Wow, I didn't know that. You believe what you want to believe. I disagree. God's plan had to liberate man. Slavery happened because God needed blacks to show white spiritual wisdom. You all wouldn't have done it any other way. I don't believe that. I don't believe that, my brother. It's all about love in the end. Wish tough love wasn't what we need. Keep spreading truths. Thank you. But if slavery didn't happen, there wouldn't be a free black community. They would still be in Africa. Ooh, let's deal. Sean might. This might be what Sean understands as history, and let's help him. Okay. So Sean, Africa is one place where black people are, but as we mentioned, black people are also indigenous to Australia, right? I want you to look up something called the Black Mongols. You ever heard of a brother by the name of Genghis Khan and Kublai Khan? How come I don't have this name in my head properly? Kublai Khan, the Mongol who took over China, the Mongol leader who took over China. These individuals descend from a black Chinese group called the Black Mongols. Sometimes they refer to as the Black Hung. They came about 1100 years before Kublai Khan. And these individuals were black Chinese. And people believe that they are the inhabitants of Pakistan at this time and now, but these individuals were black people. There's still pictures. You can still Google and see pictures of black Mongols, the Black Mongols. You can see pictures of them. They're dark-skinned people. Okay. The Assyrian nation, when you go look at some of the pictures of the sculpting and you look at their beard, how they sculpted the beard, how they sculpted their hair, Assyria, black nation. Babylon. Now, don't think of Babylon and Persia. When you think of Persia, you might think of the Ottomans. Persia, the Persians and the Medes, Babylon, Persia, those are black nations. Those are Afro-Hamitic nations. Ham in Hebrew. His name means what? Ham. It means hot. It means hot. He is the ancestor of the hot places. And so these nations, let's go down the pike. You got the first great power of the world was probably Egypt, black nation. Okay, you got Assyria, black nation. Babylon, black nation. Persia, black nation. These are black nations, my brother, that are, guess what? Only one of them I mentioned is in Africa. All right. You also have, if I can just skip forward, Israel, black nation. Abraham, black man. Okay. These individuals are Afro-Semitic people. They are not European. They are not white. Okay. The emergence of the Arab, the black Arab, and the Arab that's a white Arab, right? The emergence of the black Arab, the Arab race is a combo race from a brother by the name of Esau. God said it when you look in the Bible, said of Yaakov and Esau as they were in the belly of their mother, that there are two nations in your womb. Okay? Esau married the daughters of Ishmael. Ishmael is an Egyptian, right? And a Hebrew mixed. His mother was an Egyptian, his father was a Hebrew. Esau married his daughters. That's where you get Arabs from. Arabs are a combination of Hebrew, Egypt, combined. That's where they're from. That's where they are. That's why the Arabic language is a what? Shemitic language. That's why Arabic people cannot be anti-Semitic, because they are Semitic. Black people. You go on to, let's move 400 years before Christopher Columbus, and we have the Mali Empire in West Africa. Mali Empire was run by a brother named Abu Bakr the First. Abu Bakr was an explorer. He built two armadas. One failed miserably. The second one he built, he circumnavigated the globe. They found black people in North America. Okay? So before Christopher Columbus, this is why so many American blacks are trying to say that they're indigenous to America. There were some black people that were in America well before West African slavery. This is true. This is historical. This is factual. So the West African slave trade, taking place from about the 1400s all the way to the 1800s, did not bring black people to the world. We were already here. We were already here. We were already everywhere. We already circumnavigated the globe. Okay? So let's just establish that white world domination starts to take place with the Greek Empire. Alexander the Great, you know him well, the sodomite leader of the world. Alexander the Great, the Roman Empire. After the Roman Empire, you have this empire which is really the same thing, but it's called the Byzantine Empire. After the Byzantine Empire, you have either the rise of the Ottomans, which are the Arabs, and you have Islam. You have Islam in the 7th century that took over the world within 20 years. Right? Who are the Arabs? Remember that? Afro-Shemitic people. Arabs, right? You mix them with the Ottomans and the Turks, and you have Arab world. That's why Islam is everywhere. Why is Islam everywhere? Because Islam was the same context of Alexander. They wanted to sweep everywhere. They wanted everything. They wanted everywhere. They went all the way. They went everywhere, right? And they converted everyone as much as they can. Convert or die. They went west. They went east. You find Islam in the West Africa. You find Islam in Europe, Eastern Europe, in the Baltics, because they wanted, just like Genghis Khan and his grandson, they wanted everything. But the point I'm making is blackness is a world phenomenon, my friend. It's not localized to Africa. Okay? That was a quick geography lesson for you, quick history lesson. Here we go. Slavery was horrid, but God's plan. There's two types of slavery. There is chattel slavery, and there is servanthood slavery. Servanthood slavery is an institution of humankind. Individuals decided to work for men who are more powerful, who are richer, and to indenture themselves perpetually to those individuals. You do it too. You're just called an employee. Okay? You're waiting for your pension, your gold ring, and you hope that your slave master never fires you, never hands you a pink slip, right? But what your slave master doesn't do today is he doesn't tell you that you're property. Although he might treat you like it, depending on who you work for, but he doesn't tell you that you're property. He doesn't take away your human rights. He doesn't do those types of things. So servanthood was something that was part of the human condition. Chattel slavery was the invention of the white colonizer in Europe. And the worst of them all wasn't even those good old folks in the United States of America. The worst of them all was the Belgians. The worst. King Leopold was the worst. He was the absolute worst. He was the most horrific human being ever lived. He was 100,000 times worse than Hitler. He was a terrible, 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 terrible individual, right? And Mussolini was right behind him. But Mussolini went for the wrong people. He went for the Ethiopians, and they sent him packing twice. Okay, let's continue. Or Italy twice. I'm not Al Sharpton. I'm younger and I'm better looking. So what's the plan? I'm gonna tell you as I close in a few minutes, because this is almost an hour. Revenge and anger are not the way. It's not revenge and anger. If somebody takes something that belongs to you, right? They take something that belongs to you, and they hold it for 400 years, and you knock on the door 400 years later and say, "Sir, you know that belongs to me, right?" "Yep, I know it belongs to you. Can I have it back?" "Well, no, I can't. I've had it all this time, so why do you want it back now?" "Well, you've had it for 400 years, but it's still mine." "Yeah, but I've had it for 400 years. It was never yours." "Well, I'm not giving it back to you." "Then I will take it back because it is mine." That's not revenge. That's not anger. That's the right of the owner to take it back. It's not anger. You shouldn't be able to say, well, since I've had it for 400 years, don't be angry with me. Just let me keep it. No, I'm coming to get it. Well, you're not big enough to take it from me. Hold on a second. I'll be back. And when I come back, I'm coming back bigger. I'm coming back stronger. And if you don't give it to me, I'm going to take it. That's not revenge. That's not anger. Bitterness is clouding your happiness. I'm the happiest dude you've ever met. But this is, again, why do people tell you you should just get over the fact that I've treated you like garbage and be happy about it? Why would somebody position their mouth to say that? Who would say that? Would you beat your wife for 25 years and then when she complains and tells you, I don't like how you treat me, you say, well, you shouldn't be bitter about that. You should just be happy. The audacity of a mentality that thinks the past should simply just be forgotten because it inconveniences your present is audacity. Well, I didn't do that. My father did that. Okay, I understand. You're right. You didn't do it. You're just living in the house. You're just wearing the jewels. You're just owning the land and the property that was given to you by genocide. You don't think you should correct those things? You know what? You know why you don't? Because you're afraid of what I'm going to do. If I'm going to do to you today what your father did to us before, you're afraid. And you should be afraid. And you have a good reason to be afraid. But don't tell me that I shouldn't want my stuff. Don't tell me that I should not want restitution because you're afraid. Just say, I'm afraid that you will give me exactly what my ancestors gave to your ancestors, and I'm concerned for my safety. Say that. I'll say you're right. But then I'll show you Cyril Ramaphosa in South Africa and say that you don't know how we are because we're not like your ancestors. We won't do what they did to us because we're not like them. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Let's bend over and take it with no lube, fighting for what we believe is worth it. What are your thoughts on MLK and Malcolm X? That's a whole nother video. They were scratching the surface of things that were too big for them to hold on to, and that's why they're dead. Yeah. I see another angry black man. Sad. I hope you can let go of your anger and realize you control your destiny. That's a hilarious sentence. That's what we're talking about, Sean. Trolling our destiny, not just doing what we're told. How do you envision the second Exodus happening? Big sentence, big statement. Dr. Umar, you have no plan. Just talk. Sir Adam Shinosky. Adam, I've been here for an hour. Would you like an entire plan in an hour? And I'm nothing like Dr. Umar. You know, God bless Dr. Umar, but we're not cut from the same cloth. We're just not the same. We're just not the same kind of individual. He wants a school. I want a kingdom. I want a kingdom, Sir Adam Shinosky. I don't want a school. I want a kingdom. I want the state of Texas, state of California, state of Florida. I want New Mexico. I want all those to be reparations, to be an independent nation, separate from America, owned by survivors of the true Holocaust. And for that nation to be part of the greater, to whoever they want, whether the EU, whether they want to make affiliation with Russia, Africa, China. I want them to be independent. I want them to have their own central banking system, right? I want them to have half of all the money that is sitting around in the American mint. I want them to have half of the army. That's what I want. That's my plan. Can I have that plan? Will you offer that plan to me? Will you give me the plan that I've just articulated to you in less than 45 seconds? Can you handle that plan? You're terrified of that plan. That's why you want to come up here and take Canada, because you're scared. All of y'all, 350 million scared Americans, and you're even scared of your own shadow in Canada. But you'd definitely be scared if black people in America said, we want our own nation and we're tired of being part of yours. That's the plan. That's the only plan. It's not Marcus Garvey. We're not going back to Africa. They're staying right here, and we're taking what belongs to us peacefully. Hand it over. You don't want that plan, do you? See, you wanted a plan. I gave you a plan off the top of my doggone head. No pen, no paper. So Ham turned black. Ham was always black. If you look at the book of Genesis chapter 10, right? The Hebrew word Ham, the word Chet, that's the letter Chet, is the first letter. It's not H. It's not a H. It's not the He. It's the Chet, and it's Ham. And he was always black. His name means hot. Ham means hot. And if you look at the nations in Genesis 10, of who were all of Ham's descendants, those are African people, black people. Bless you. Let's keep going. He says, what do you say? He said, already everywhere. Don't worry, happy. Don't worry, be happy. Todd Bridges. Pond perfect for today, every moment existence. Wow, we got a lot of comments there. Australia. We messed it up badly. I'm not going to use your word. In Australia, with the First Nation people, too many times. Yeah, man. They've basically killed every indigenous Australian to like, that nation is gone. So bless you. Thank you. This is Del K. Burton. This is The Real Spiel. I know it was long. I didn't mean it to be an hour long. Please share. Please become a subscriber. Absolutely comment. Absolutely, you don't have to agree with me. This is peaceful discourse. I can't reach through here and grab you by the neck. All I can do is talk. All I can do is give you the vision. All I can do is give you the plan. God bless you. We'll talk to you very soon. To all of the Cyclopses that are in the building, to all of my people all over the world who cry out from the ground and cry out from above your grave that it's not finished yet. It's not finished till you have what belongs to you. God bless you. Bye-bye.